All right, so we can start the session again. We were saying in the beginning this morning that the idea was to reflect and think about these aspects and give you food for thought, and I hope this is working for you. The Mentimeter is working, as you know, online on the web, so you may ask your questions there on Mentimeter. Let me just remind you that we will now hear from Judith Gifreu and Josep Maria Montaner to discuss the chair of housing studies. It's a recent initiative in the city of Barcelona. We just heard about data. So the previous panel was about social housing policies and how they are slow and how they are expensive, and that's probably one of the reasons why the Barcelona chair of housing studies has a role. We heard about evidence gaps and statistics and how the housing policies may take a quantum leap if we have the right data, if we have the right information. From the Basque Country, we heard that the data are very helpful for them when it comes to investing their resources. And as we heard from the moderator, in the end, of course, data comes from the people, and we need to have an educated public, and we need to also have educated authorities. The authorities react or tend to react. So that's why we have now the Barcelona Chair of Housing Studies in order to promote innovation and research to provide new answers to the field of housing. We will have Judith Gifreu online. We will hear her and see her shortly. I don't know if she's on line. Judith Gifreu, Doctor of Law, Professor of Law, Administrative Law, Autonomous University of Barcelona. Yes, here I am. Good morning. First and foremost, I would like to apologize for not being there. I'm sure you're enjoying the different presentations by the experts. The coordination of the organization actually asked Josep Maria and myself to tell you about the Barcelona Chair of Housing Studies. It's been recently created by the 4 universities in Barcelona, the Catalan Technical University, the Autonomous University of Barcelona, the University of Barcelona, and the Pompeu Fabra University, together with the City Hall in Barcelona and the government of Catalonia, the Generalitat, that actually does so by means of the Catalan Housing Institute. So it's an inter-university chair. It's brand new because we've just signed the agreement among the different stakeholders. So that's why we cannot tell you specifically about ongoing projects, but rather we would like to share with you the enthusiasm behind this project. It's very necessary faced with this current backdrop in the housing sphere and in terms of housing as a universal right. So we need to build knowledge, multidisciplinary, law, architecture, geography, etc., and with the experience of the authorities on the ground and in the field, or let's put it differently, we can add up theory and practice, and that's why we think this chair is going to be very valuable when it comes to future plans. Dr. Montaner and myself were preparing for this presentation, and we thought that it might be interesting to first set the context. So why the need to create this chair, and then I'll hand over to Josep Maria Montaner, Dr. Montaner, and he'll discuss the objectives and the projection of this chair. So my turn goes first. So I would like to discuss why the need of having an inter-university chair of these characteristics. I'm sure it's nothing new for most of the attendees, because I'm sure you're all experts in terms of housing policies in the municipal sphere or regional or nationwide sphere. So it's nothing new, it's no mystery to say that the housing context is tricky, extreme, or dramatic. Some people would say it's even tragic, because we've been dragging this problem along for so many years, and the solution is not round the corner. The situation was dark enough, but it's even darker now with the collapse of the worldwide financial system, which in turn led to the real estate bubble exploding, and then the savings banks and large development companies collapsed. We know that the banking system was rescued without any conditions, so no flexibilization of the interest rates, no flexibilization of the different mortgage caps, and quite the opposite. The citizens that had purchased their homes before the recession at the lower interest rates, of course, and things were much easier back then on the part of the banks. So most of those citizens lost their jobs, and they had to face evictions. Another important consequence has been the arrival of new stakeholders, investment funds that have been purchasing those portfolios at very, very low prices. We've seen also the arrival of real estate investment trusts, and the rent actually itself has been the object of the most recent regulations in terms of public housing policies, and it's one of the ways to stabilize the situation. It's not going to be solved again overnight, because it's a structural problem, so we need different strategic initiatives, but it's a step forward. The promotion of rental stock is the agenda, and we have the housing plan. I recall that 2016, and the idea, the concept was there, but it's not been that successful. Other measures that focus on promoting aids and subsidies for the promotion of rent, that's a lifesaver for many families, for many households, but it's not a definitive solution, because it's just a patch, if you allow me to put it this way, and the budgets of the authorities cannot stand this increase that is incremental, but it's an increase of the demand. I'm referring to the demand of these aids. So there are many applications, and in terms of expense contention, many creative initiatives have been developed. Maybe I can mention Catalonia as a region. We've been pioneers in terms of setting, laying a legal framework, and we have the second generation housing plan, and we have the second generation legislation now available in the different regions in Spain, and we in Catalonia were also pioneers in this sense. So we've been trying to find other solutions, imaginative and effective solutions, in order to face, for instance, energy poverty. There are measures foreseen in the 1/2015 Royal Decree. It goes hand in hand with the agreement signed with the Finance Catalan Institute, also the tax on empty apartments, that's constitutional now, and the measures included in different laws, 24/2015, stemming from a popular initiative, and another piece of legislation, 4/2016, replacing the previous one, because the previous piece of legislation was refuted and in the Constitutional Court. And now we have advanced measures like compulsory social rent or other measures that we now have. Some of these measures have led to social and political debates. For instance, how rent should be related to certain indices, or the regulation of household occupancy rates. So these are measures that want to put an end to those difficulties when it comes to accessing housing. And there is yet another aspect to be mentioned here, because without the shadow of the doubt, access to housing is paramount. It's the priority, of course, because of the chronification of evictions, etc. But today we also need to make huge efforts when it comes to refurbishing the homes, so to improve the conditions. With all the lockdowns, with the pandemic, those were made evident. The situation is now patent, and now we have this on the table. We've had several meetings at the European, international level. Of course, in terms of the climate change, and the next gen funds will help, presumably, hopefully, because this is a crusade against climate change, and housing has something to do there. We have residential stock that is quite poor in terms of construction conditions. It's not adequate, so in terms of energy, it's not efficient. So that's why many reports say that 15% of the greenhouse effect emissions is caused by this poor quality residential stock. Of course, we need to revert the situation. We need to improve in terms of energy efficiency. There are quite a few legislations that have been passed. In 2021, we have a new royal decree that regulates this matters, also in terms of social housing, under the umbrella of the transformation and resilience plan that we have. Today, the social protection stock is not enough, especially in terms of rent housing. So it's not true that there is no housing policy. Let me put it differently. I think we've built a lot, but it's been erratic. Many different homes have been built, but basically for purchase purposes. And then after 5, 10, 15, 30 years, this homes were qualified. So we need to resynchronize the different policies. This has not continued with the current party in power, but I think it was a good idea, because even if the measures that I mentioned before are very important and they help, meanwhile, making the most of the current residential stock, yet what we need is to build and maintain protected housing when the land is qualifiable as protected. And that is proposed by the Royal Decree 2019. So these new buildings, protected buildings, had a permanent character, provided the land was part of the public stock. So these buildings need to be part of a specific qualification and under the umbrella of this rental public stock. Let me start wrapping up. The fact that European funds are available to build energy efficient buildings is very good news, but as psychologists say, we need to diversify, because we don't want to put all the eggs in the same basket. So we need collaboration between the social stakeholders, the authorities, the universities. This will give value. This will provide value when it comes to deploying or assessing or promoting new initiatives and new proposals in the lines of housing policies, because there are many aspects that can be covered. Co-living, for instance, as a concept, what other countries are doing, replicating initiatives, industrialized promotion of housing, public-private partnership, environmental challenges, green certificates in the cities, the use of sustainable materials, circular economy, green hiring. So there are so many aspects revolving around housing, and that is something that the Barcelona chair can tackle from a multidisciplinary perspective, so that we can be more efficacious in terms of the development of public housing. We can help in terms of research, consultancy, knowledge transfer, just to mention a few aspects. So it's important that you get to know about us, that you know that we exist, that the Barcelona Chair of Housing Studies exists. And with that, I would like to hand over to Dr. Josep Maria Montaner. We need to say that he has been the #1 promoter of this chair, so he can explain about the structure and the content of this chair. That's all from me. Thank you very much for your attention, and I wish you a fruitful discussion. I'm sure it'll be, having seen the program. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Judith Gifreu. She started talking about the fact that the housing sector is in a tricky situation, but she has given some encouraging ending. José María Montaner is a doctor and professor at the Barcelona School of Architecture, and he will give us further information on this. Good morning, and thank you very much for having invited us to come to this conference. Thank you on behalf of the large group that is promoting the chair of housing studies at the University of Barcelona. I will complement what she has said. In Barcelona. You know that this organization is made up by four Barcelona institutions plus another institution, which is the Ministry of Transport and Transport of the Spanish government, Transport and Housing, as well as the Catalan government. So it's the first time that we have the three layers of government: the City Council of Barcelona, the Catalan government, and also the national government. And the agreement, we're currently explaining something that we signed last week after a few, many months of preparing this chair. Now it's time to introduce it to the public and to try and work on the scholarly part of it. In the 30 minutes I've been allocated, I would like to explain a couple of things. How this chair was devised, what its purpose is, and how it is organized. The creation process has been quite long, 2 years before the pandemic. The promoting group is made up of teachers from the 4 universities, besides the representatives from the 2 institutions which promoted this. And it is very interesting now that we talked about the housing observatories, such as the one in Barcelona, because the same institutions which led the creation of this observatory thought that it would be complementary to have the universities and the scholars to create this chair of studies, of housing studies, to contribute, with all the information, the research, the data, the hard facts, and the knowledge generated and being generated at the universities around this topic. Therefore, let me sum up. It's been a long process. The pandemic, after 2 on-site meetings, we had 2 additional telematic meetings, but there was a deadlock here. Then at the 4 universities, the government changed, so it had to be explained again to the new leading teams. And then there had never been an agreement between the 4 universities in the past. It's usually agreements between one university and one business, company, or one university or one institution. And in this case, we had never had an agreement between the 4 universities plus 3 different authorities. So our legal department and our economic departments took a long time to fine-tune how this agreement was going to be organized. It's been a complex and intense process, but it is very valuable that we were able to sign the protocol and the MOU in June, and now we have already signed the official agreement. Judith Gifreu mentioned that, and the 2 initial institutions plus the 3rd one, the Spanish Ministry of Housing and Territory, will also participate as of in the next few months. They will join. Well, the housing crisis, the housing problem is multifaceted and highly complex. That's why it makes so much sense to have an institution, an inter-university, a multidisciplinary chair to deal with it, because in housing we see an overlap of many different know-hows, skills, and practices: law, town planning, sociology, architecture, economics, and so on. That's why it is so interesting to create this open chair. It is an open chair. It's not a nominal chair, which will be jointly managed by 4 joint directors, 1 from each university. And while it is being discussed, the promoters, let me read the names out loud because it is important to bear them in mind. It's about 20 teachers plus experts in the field of housings who helped us, and with the collaboration of Eduardo González de Molina, who is the current secretary. The group is made up by teachers from the Autonomous University of Barcelona, Judith Gifreu, Carles Donat, who is here in the audience, Ricard Gomà, and many others. Teachers from the Barcelona University, Montserrat Pareja, or Julie Ponce, or Domènec Sivilla among them. Teachers from the Polytechnic University of Barcelona. That's that was the inception, actually, at the architecture school, where we started to bring together the different partners: Josep Roca, Jordi Bosch, who was here earlier, Faida Mouchi, Pilar García Mirall, Albert Cucci, who teaches at the Vallès School, as well as many teachers from the Pompeu Fabra University, Josep Ferrer, Paulina Bellvei, and many others. These are some of the names that join some experts such as Jaime Palomera, Albert Salas, and many others that I will not remember at the moment: Carme Trilla, Vergés, Javier Buron, and many others that I can't mention. So it's a collective initiative from the different universities. This is an open chair, and as it will start working now, shortly, we will first of all take stock of the research projects, the ongoing research project, and to create working sessions, try to make them as inter-university as possible, to make them common to all the universities. And now let me move on to the goals. Of course, this is easy to understand, but we have very relevant goals. The main goal is to promote research, applied research, multidisciplinary research, and to coordinate it, because very often this research did exist in the past. We have plenty of theses and doctorate theses and research projects on housing from different perspectives and standpoints and ideologies and so on, but we wanted to coordinate all these scattered efforts and to channel things also and promote it through grants. So one part is research. We also intend to promote education, postgrad course, master's courses, all kinds of activities, training activities, and then knowledge dissemination and knowledge transfer, so that this can reach out to citizens and to the media. Very often, research is not known by anyone, not even by the experts, least of all by citizens. And this research can be extremely useful to implement and do better private housing policies to implement the concept. And this has to be useful for the current and future measures regarding housing, but it's also interesting to keep, track of history. Learning from the past and doing historical research is also interesting because it's interesting to learn from the good contemporary or past practices and to be able to take stock of what happened. More things. Training, knowledge transfer, and last but not least, this university scholarly knowledge, which is not disseminated enough, should be disseminated more in a more widespread way, because very often research, projects, proposals, and so on of innovation do not reach their targets, society as a whole. So these the institutions should be able to receive this knowledge and this advice on what is being done and what is being researched upon. And let me conclude that this is a 4-year agreement with the 4 universities, 4 joint directors. They will take turns. There has been a set of promoters. It will always be a collective task. First, we want to take stock of research at the universities of Barcelona around the topic of housing, to compile all the research groups that are currently working or have worked in the past. The Barcelona will also be the host of the European Network for Housing Research in conference from the 30th of August to the 2nd of September, and the chair will participate in that conference, and the chair will have 4 headquarters, of course, at the 4 universities. It will be jointly managed, and besides the shifts we will take in jointly managing this chair, they will all be appointed by the rectors of the universities, and we will also have representatives from the city council, the Catalan government, and so on. So I could explain much more, but it was really necessary for Barcelona to have a chair on housing studies, as many other cities have, because many cities have a more long-standing tradition on housing policies and research. And this is a complement to an initiative that took off 3 years ago, which was the Metropolitan Observatory of Housing for Barcelona. Let's hope that this we are able to raise the profile of all of this, and that the chair can kick off and get going after the agreement was signed. We're open to research, and the idea is to create an open structure, something that is open to research from all perspectives. Thank you very much to you all. Thank you very much, Josep Maria Montaner, and also Judith Gifreu. Let's conclude this morning with good news, the value of creating this collective initiative that will offer research or information, knowledge transfer, and to bring all this knowledge to society, to share it with society, which is something that we have requesting throughout the morning. We will now break for lunch. We will resume at 3, and this afternoon we will continue with the Mentimeter. It is very easy. You have to go to menti.com, and there you will be requested a code The code has been mentioned throughout the sessions. Here you have it on the screen. 78939 039. So, I wish you a nice lunch, but we will resume at 3 sharp. Thank you.